One, two, three, four.
Welcome everyone to another episode of Tips from My Garage. My name is Lisiate Tonga. I'm the father of two boys, husband to a beautiful wife, author of ebook Q&A Between Two Addicts, and owner of online consulting business Upgrade Version U.0. And today's episode is going to be all about asking the right questions. And I want to start it out by saying that the quality of your life is directly linked to the quality of the questions that you ask of it. So I don't know if you know this, but you're actually going around asking yourself questions every single day, whether you're conscious of it or not. We have mode, a default mode that questions ourselves, and that can be positive and it also can be negative, and they direct our lives on a specific path depending on the type of questions that we're asking. And so that's what I really want to talk about today. When you ask yourself a question, your brain starts to search for an answer to it. So there are really two types of questions that we're asking ourselves, and I'm going to place them in these categories. They're either going to be proactive or they're going to be reactive type questions. The reactive type questions are questions that will position you into a victimhood mentality. Conversely, the proactive questions are going to put you into a mindset where you can take action and solve problems. So I'll give you an example of a victimhood type question that we ask ourselves. So if you're, let's say, going through a difficult time in your life at this moment, there's many things going wrong in your life. Your relationship isn't working out. Your job situation isn't working out. Your career is not going the way that you want it to go. You're not making the money that you want to make. Your financial situation isn't where you want it to be, or it's not in a good state, or you might be broke and going down a slippery slope where things are just getting worse and worse and worse. And so when you're in this kind of a situation, there's a question that you ask yourself. And that question can be, why is this happening to me? This is really kind of, I don't want to say it's a default question, because I don't think that everybody asks that question. But your brain has a tendency to want to ask that question because it's a less painful question. And what I mean by a less painful question is that the answer to this question, which your brain will go out and search for, is going to be less painful because the cause of the problem is somewhere else. So it's not you. So if the problem isn't you, then the problem is somewhere else. And if because if the problem was you, then that can be painful. And it's painful because it means that you have to accept responsibility. So the victimhood question that we ask ourselves, and we often ask ourselves this, and it is often a default question, but I don't want to call it a default question because not everybody asks that questions when they get into situations like that. Because I do know people who don't ask that question because they know how detrimental it is. But there are a good number of, you could say the majority of people ask that, and I would dare say that everybody at some stage maybe has asked that question of themselves, is why me, why is this happening to me? So this thing that is happening to you is happening to you, meaning it's coming from somewhere else, and then it's coming onto you. So it's happening to you. So that thing is over there, and that needs to get resolved. It's not me. So there's there's less pain or there's no pain because there's no responsibility. But that's what I mean by victimhood question, because if you're a victim, then the problem is somewhere else. The problem is someone else. The problem is a situation or a circumstance beyond your control. So there's no responsibility on your end at all. That's a victimhood type mentality. And this is the kind of question that will lead you down a specific road, and that road is going to be detrimental. That's not a very good road to go down because nothing really gets solved, and then other things can happen down that road where you're not accepting responsibility. If there's no responsibility and you're the victim, then you're opening a door to even more problems that can escalate and snowball into bigger problems as life goes on. So that's the first type of question that we're talking about. The second type of question is the proactive question. It's the other question that you could ask yourself if you're faced with this type of a circumstance where you don't know how to deal with the situation, or you, not that you don't know how to deal with it. Well, perhaps you don't know how to deal with it, but it is a it is a bad situation, right? So let's say you're still in that same circumstance, but that question is, the question that you ask yourself is a different question. The question then becomes, how can I make things better? So do you see the difference in the question? So how can I make things better, or how can I change the circumstances? That also changes your physiology. It changes your physiology, it changes your approach, it changes your perception, right? Because now you're in a situation where when your brain is looking for answers, the only answers it's going to find is you have to do something about it. That means that you have to take action. But there is a feeling there of control. uh, I would dare say even hope, because you do have control, because you can take action. And if you take action, there's the possibility that things are going to be better. But the thing is that your brain starts looking for solutions. It's going to start like going to different places, like what can I do today? Can I you know, if I'm in a relationship that's not going my way, or if you know everything is bad and maybe you're blaming her or you're blaming him or whatever the circumstance may be, you could think to yourself, well, how can I make this better myself? How can I make this relationship work? What is it that I need to do on my end? Or with the situation you have financially, well, what can I do to make this better? Like, or is there something else that I can do, or where can I redirect my energy that's going to change the situation I'm in? So as an example, I work uh, in a sales position where it's commission based. And you know, when you're in a job where you're only earning commissions, it, you cannot afford to put yourself in a situation where you start making yourself into a victim. You have to be very proactive about what you're doing and intentional and purposeful about what you're doing, so that you can control as much of that situation as you can in a sales environment. So it's really important in a sales environment, and people out there, you know who you are that are in sales. You can't afford to let your brain go into a or your mind go into a bad space, and it will go into a bad space if you start thinking negatively. And those that negative thinking starts with questionings like, oh, why am I on a bad run, or why can't I do this, or there's various different ways that you can ask your questions that can make you the victim. But in this kind of an environment, I have to ask myself, if I'm not writing deals, what can I do to improve my presentation? How can I connect with my clients better? What can I do to help them to see more value? How can I create more urgency? So those are questions that I would ask myself to help myself to improve, because I need to do that for myself. No one else is going to do it for me. And no one else is going to do it for you. No one's coming to save you. You got to do it yourself. And so those are the two types of questions that you're going to be confronted with whenever you get into difficult situations. You're either going to have a reactive type question, ask yourself a reactive type question, or a proactive type questions. And both of these will change your physiology and give you perceptions that are equal to the type of question that you're asking. If you're asking a reactive question, the perception is victimhood, and then the physiology changes, your mindset changes. You're the victim. The problem is over there. You can't solve it. You won't solve it, and then it starts to become even more problematic. Or if you're in a difficult situation, you ask the proactive question. You say to yourself, how can I make this situation better? Situation better, change your physiology into a positive state, your perception's positive, you start to become proactive. You look for solutions, you start to fix problems, or you start to look for places or to find solutions in different areas. Those two types of questions are questions that you ask yourself when you get into difficult situations. And chances are we're going through difficult situations every single day. And we're actually on autopilot. So this thing is something that we are doing without knowing that we're doing it. It happens unconsciously. And so one tip that I would give to you is to pay attention. Do your best to pay attention to the quality of the questions or the type of questions that you're asking yourself. Try to be conscious of the type of questions that you're asking yourself. Listen to yourself when you're asking them. Are you making yourself a victim? Are you putting yourself in a situation where you're making it harder on yourself? And if that's the case, then at least you have that awareness, because you need that awareness is the first thing. Because if you don't know that you're doing it, and a lot of us don't know it, that we're actually doing it, we're asking these questions. If you don't know that you're doing it, then you can't change it. So that awareness is key. So if you're more aware, if you have that self-awareness of the type of questions that you're asking it, then you can change that, right? And I would say that if you're asking victimhood questions, you're going to be a victim. But you can change that. You can change that by changing the type of questions that you're asking yourself. So if you're catching yourself asking yourself the questions that you shouldn't be asking yourself, then you catch yourself, you stop, you readjust yourself, and you ask another question. How can I make things better? What can I do here? What can I do there? How can I do this a different way? Is there another way that I can take? There's so many different types of ways that you can ask questions that are gonna put you into a proactive state. And when you're in that state of being where you can accomplish things, you can do things, you can take action, you're going to find more solutions, and you're going to solve more problems. And if you're going to solve more problems, then you're going to change the circumstances to the direction that you want it to go, and not the direction that it's going in that you don't think you have any control of. Because in actual fact, you do have control of it, but you don't believe it, because you don't want to believe it's you who got you to where you are. You got to believe that you're the only person that gets you to where you want to go. So if you want to change the direction of your life because you don't like the direction that you're going, then you need to change the quality of the questions that you're asking yourself. If you change the quality of the questions you ask yourself, then you become solution focused. And when you become solution focused, you take action on those things. And when you take actions on those things, lives change, behaviors change, circumstances change. But it needs to start in here first before everything within your control can change also for the better. So the better the questions you're asking yourself, the better the quality of the life is that you're going to have. And so I hope that is helpful. Let me know in the comments what you think. I hope this was helpful, and I will see you on the next one.
2,